Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Last week I was at Gen Con and I went to the Fantasy Flight In-Flight Report, and they announced a new game called KeyForge, which incidentally is an odd name because Richard Brees has taken the Keyflower, Keythedral, run with the Key series, but this has nothing to do with his games. This is a new game by Richard Garfield, who is the designer of Magic the Gathering, Robo Rally, King of Tokyo, many other great games. Now, Magic the Gathering is a very innovative game, so is KeyForge. See, KeyForge is a unique game, they're calling it. That's because every deck that you will ever buy of this game is going to be completely unique. I mean, literally, they said there is quadrillions of combinations. You will never get the same deck as somebody else. Okay, and we sat there as we listened to this, and our minds were a little bit warped. And we had questions, and believe you me, I have asked many questions to the folks at Fantasy Flight about this. We've talked to Richard Garfield. There's just so much going on in this. But before we talk about how this game and the distribution and all that, I want to give you an idea of how the game plays. Because, right, if the game isn't fun at all, then none of this really matters. So this is how the game plays. I'll show you 2 example decks. Let's do it. Now, when you get KeyForge, you can buy just a deck of cards here. There's 37 cards that come in a deck. You can also buy a starter set, which is not out yet, and that starter set will also have all the different pieces that you need. I don't have that starter set right now, so I'm just going to be using some pieces here, like amber pieces, which will come in a starter set. These are just pieces that I have. And damage tokens. There's also something called chains, and then keystones. This is just what I'm going to be using. The actual pieces themselves, you can see them here on the rules: damage tokens, amber tokens, and these key tokens. Now, the goal of the game is to get 3 key tokens. Each key token costs you 6 amber. On the very beginning of your turn, if you have 6 amber, you can get one of these key tokens. So you need to get amber and then hold on to it to get a key token, and once you get your 3rd key token, you will win the game. Now, you're going to do that by having a deck of cards. So here I have 2 decks of cards. I've had a chance to look at about 10 different decks at this point, and I want to talk about these decks of cards. So these 2 decks of cards here, each deck of cards that comes in this game is going to be completely unique. There is a randomized name here. So here we have Fox Oil Roomkite and Queen the Freshly Fibrous. Very weird name. So that name's going to be different in every deck you buy. This picture is also going to be different somehow on every single deck. And then there's going to be 3 different houses. Now, you can see these guys share 2 houses here, and they have a 3rd different one. But there's going to be 35 different combinations of houses. You will then have 12 cards from each of those houses in your deck, along with a checklist card. So if I turn this one over here, you can see the checklist card here for this particular deck. Here's the one for the other, Queen of the Freshly Fibrous. It has a QR code. These don't work yet, but you're going to be able to go online and look at your thing. There's rumors that you'll be able to play with your deck online if you have these. I'm not quite sure. You can see here we have 3 houses. We have Mars, Sanctum, and Shadows. Mars, Shadows, and Untamed. It shows you the number of cards that it is. There's a 350 card pool. It also shows the rarity. So you might see here, for example, Word of Returning is a rare card. So you're never quite sure what the combination of cards are in a particular deck. The cards themselves are going to look like this. It shows you the faction of the house. It has the name of your character on the front of the cards too. Some numbers, everything else. Like, so if I find Dew Fairy in another deck, it's going to look exactly and do the exact same things as this Dew Fairy, with the exception of the name at the bottom being different. And in fact, I think some cards will even change faction occasionally, although I haven't had a chance to see that yet. Now, your deck is not limited. As you play and discard cards, if you run out of your deck, you'll shuffle your discard pile and use it again. You're just going to keep playing until you get enough amber to get the keystones. Now, on your turn, you're going to pick one of your 3 houses here. And that's the cards you can play that turn. Now, the very first turn of the game, the first player can only play 1 card. But other than that, after that, you can play as many cards as you want. So I look at my hand. Let's pretend it's like the second turn of the game or so. And I see I have 3 cards here from the one house. I have 2 from the Mars house and 1 from that house. So I might decide to play these because there's 3 of them. But maybe I want to do something else. Once you play, for example, this Ether Spider here in front of you, to activate that spider in a future turn, that's the house I have to play. So if this was my hand, I might say, oh, I got 3 of these cards. I want to play them. But I want to activate that creature on the board. So I'm going to pick Mars as the house I'm going to play. That allows me to play this card and activate this one. Now, a very critical thing about this game is that when you play a card like this creature here, there's no cost. You can simply play all the cards of that house, which means at any point in time you can play 1/3 of the cards in your deck. Now, many of the cards you play are going to be creatures. Creatures have a couple stats on them. They have an armor here. This one has no armor, but armor might subtract from when your enemy is attacking you. And then you have this, which is both your attack and your hit points. They also have special abilities, so Ether Spider deals no damage when fighting. So the Ether Spider is not worth fighting at all. And then each amber that would be added to your opponent's pool is captured by Ether Spider instead. They're stealing amber from my opponent. That's a great one. And they're going to have to take this ether down to take it out. Here's another one, Bad Penny. Bad Penny has 1 hit point. That's it, and 1 attack. However, when she's destroyed, she comes back into my hand. Here I have a Dust Pixie, which is simply just 1. That seems kind of worthless, but here's the deal. Some cards, like the Dust Pixie here, and the Jammer Pack, and the Word of Returning here, when you play them, you will instantly get that much amber. So the Dust Pixie here gives me 2 amber when I play her. So creatures you're going to place on the table. Now, why would you place creatures on a table? Because creatures, once they're on a table and you activate that house, you can attack other people with them, in which case you pick one of the other person's creatures and you do this much damage to them and they do that much damage to you, and once they're dead they come off. Otherwise you just put hit points on them until they are dead, and those will stay on the creature from round to round. You can also mine with a creature. When you mine, you basically exhaust the card like that and you get an amber. Remember, amber is how you're going to win the game because you need to have 6 amber to get your keystones over the course of the game. So creatures are basically doing those different things, and some creatures also have actions on them that you can use. Creatures aren't the only thing in your deck. You also have actions like this here. Play, destroy each damaged creature. Gain a chain. Whoa, what's a chain? Well, in this game, there are chains. Chains are basically ways that you can essentially make the game a little fairer. So here is a little chart. This is going to come in the starter set, and this shows if you have this many chains, that's how many fewer cards you'll draw, because at the end of your turn, you draw up to 6 cards. So if I have 19 chains, I'm only drawing 2 cards, which can be problematic. Every time you need to draw cards and you can't draw up to your full amount, you lose 1 chain. So when I play that card that gives me a chain, I might only have 1 chain, so that means at the end of that turn I only draw up to 5, but then the chain goes away. Chains will also be used if decks seem to be imbalanced. You can take more chains than your opponent. So there's different actions. Like I said, there's also upgrades. This creature gains your opponent's keys, now costs 2 amber. Nice! I put this on this Ether Spider. And now for this Ether Spider, you have to kill this thing, otherwise it's going to cost you 8 to get your keys into play. Here, destroy each damage. Oh, I already looked at that one. So we have these different cards here. Deal 1 damage to each enemy creature. For each amber on it, return all amber from those creatures to your pool. That's great because sometimes creatures will steal amber from you and it will sit there on that creature until it's destroyed. Here, I can get it back from them with my Word of Returning. Now, I could probably show you tons of cards, but I'm just going to show you some different cards that you can play. Here's an action. The next creature artifact you play this turn enters play ready. So you don't, usually when a card comes into play, it starts exhausted, but hey, now I can land and start attacking right away. I can sacrifice this to destroy an artifact. Your opponent can have artifacts in front of them that they'll be able to use. Steal an amber, putting it on one of my creatures. If I do 2 damage to a creature. Here, this is a giant creature here, Taunt. This creature there's neighbors, and in this game, placement of your creatures will often matter. Sometimes it talks about attacking creatures on the flanks. Here, you can't attack the guys next to him until you take him out. But he enters play stunned, which means you're going to have to use an action to get that stun token off him. Heal a damage from each creature, and you get an amber for each creature healed this way. Do 3 to a creature and 3 to a neighbor of that creature with this mighty lance. This creature, you give it to one, and whenever you reap or harvest with them, you get to not only get a amber, but they'll steal 1 from your opponent. This makes your opponent's keys cost an extra amber. And when you fight or reap with this creature, you capture 1 amber from your opponent. Here I can't play creatures with this gigantic thing out there. After an enemy creature is destroyed fighting him, your opponent loses 1. So you can be like destroying them and their amber. Here, let's see here. The Dew Fairy's elusive. The first time they're attacked, they don't take any damage. And when they reap, they're going to get 2 amber instead of 1. If your opponent has 6 amber or more, steal 1. During each turn in which Untamed, that's this house here, is not your active house, you may play 1 Untamed card. So I can do Aliens, the Mars guys, and play 1 Untamed card when this is in play. And this is just a small sampling of the cards that are in this set. So that's pretty much how to play. Let's go to my thoughts. So first of all, I want to talk about the distribution of this, but first of all, I want to talk about how the game plays. So far, I'm really enjoying it. It is definitely a Magic stylized game in a sense, although there's a lot of differences. I'm not saying it's like Magic, but it's that 1 versus 1 aspect. But the best thing about this game and the gameplay is that whole pick one of your houses and only activate cards of that house. You can discard cards of that house if you want to, so you can get a better hand, but you can only discard cards of the house you activate it. That makes a really cool concept. Like, I want to tackle that creature, but I want to play these 3 cards from a different house. Which do I do? Which do I do? That's a good choice. I like that, and that to me is the most fun part of the game. Also using your creatures, you want to attack with them. There's a lot of attacking back and forth. Do I want to reap and get the amber with them? Am I stealing the amber back and forth? There's a lot of little fun decisions in this game. And the game plays very bombastically because you'll sit there and go boom and wipe your opponent out. Like, there's cards that you feel like, wow, that's super powerful. Then your opponent does it back to you. It gave me a similar feel to a game Epic from White Wizard Games. This whole boom, 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 and playing cards back and forth. Sometimes you have a couple building turns, and then boom, you hit them again. And I like that. It's this back and forth, trying to collect amber. Okay, come on, can I hang on to that 6 amber? Yes, it's the beginning of my turn. Quick, get a key. And go on. So that's really neat. I like the gameplay a lot. I've already determined which of my 3 houses I like the best. The Mars is definitely one of them, and there's a couple other houses. They list the houses here in the rules. They're probably somewhere in the rule book. The rule book, by the way, is not that complex. It's a fairly simple rule book, and then at the end they have all the different terms in case you need to look any term up. Okay, so like I said, there are 35 different combinations of the 7 different houses. So let's say I find my 3-house combination. Now, how do I get that? So this is where it's unique and intriguing to me how this game works. Because you get your deck, and for me, I've played many deck building games, from collectible card games, trading card games, to living card games and things. So I get these cards, and I'm like, ooh, I would like to see that card with this card. I can't put them together. Your deck is your deck. It can never be changed. It can never be modified. You can never mix these decks together. Now, when I say that, I would guess half my audience here goes, what? I want to do deck building. And the other half's like, yes. And I have mixed feelings, right? Because I want to do the deck building aspect of this, but I get that that's not what this game is about. Richard Garfield, in the notes of the game, said that he made this game so that, he always was annoyed that there'd be different cards that just didn't make the meta of Magic or whatever, and so those cards would never get used. You're going to use all your cards in this deck, so you take your deck, he says in this game, welcome to the jungle. Take the tools you have, learn how to use your deck, and that's neat. So I want to find a deck that has the 3 factions, so it's 1 out of 35, so I'm very curious to see how the secondary market for that's going to be, where I'm going to go around. I'm not going to keep buying decks till I find the exact combination. What I'm going to do as a player is buy maybe 5 or 6 decks or whatever, and then go through those, find my favorites, because I'm going to like these decks. I haven't played a deck yet that I don't like. And then take that deck and say, okay, how do I use this? How can I learn to make the combos in this deck work? Because, and this is something that needs to be made clear, these decks are different, but they're not completely randomized. The cards are made to work with each other. I don't know how they do it. The technology for how they make this game and print it is unbelievably, just blows my mind. This game could not have even been printed 5 years ago. But The biggest complaint that people who are watching this video, it's going to probably be in the comments, where people say, well, what do you do if you get an unbalanced deck and beat everybody? I don't know. They have these chains in this game. Chains felt slightly clunky to me, but they have these chains to balance the decks out, and that's what the QR code is. So I'm sure that if you go to tournaments, you got to scan your card, and if you start winning more and more games with that, you're going to have chains and it will balance things out. Great. That's great for organized play. For in-house play, if maybe, Jason beats me with his deck 18 times, I might be like, all right, you're taking chains, or I'm not playing that deck anymore. But so far, all the decks that I've played with, and they gave out a pile of random decks at Gen Con, and again, every deck is different, and so far, they have all felt fairly balanced. And for casual players, which I know is a majority of the people who watch the Dice Tower, this is fantastic. You get a deck, you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to figure out what cards to put in it. You have these cards and you just go and play against somebody else in a fairly quick, we're talking 30-minute game. I'm really intrigued by this. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to go on the secondary market and try to find a deck that has the 3 exact factions that I like. That's pretty neat to me, right? I want the Mars, the healing faction, and another faction of big brutes and stuff. I just think, but then I'm like, ooh, but what if I want this one particular rare card? There's one of the decks I got has a little annoying twerp guy who every time your opponent plays a card, they take a damage. I love that card. So now I want that deck, those 3 with that card. That's going to be a little bit harder to find, right? So maybe I just make do with the decks I have. My mind boggles with this, and I know that there's a lot of negativity right now on the internet about this, and I'm curious if that same negativity existed when the collectible card game was first announced. Who knows? This might be the next big thing. It might not be. We're going to have to wait and see. But for right now, I'm willing to experiment with this. I'm so intrigued by this idea. The game itself is fun. I know people are like, this is a money grab. Yes, all games are, just as a clarification point. Because you can literally spend $10 and never spend another penny and have so much fun with this game. You have your one deck, learn how to use that deck, go and play other people and just have fun with that deck. That's all you need. The base set itself is going to have 4 decks, 2 decks that are the same for everybody, like standardized decks, just teach you the game, and then 2 more of those random decks, and then, or unique decks, not random, unique decks, and then, so 4 decks total, and then all the different tokens you need. So when the game comes out, I'm going to get one of those, right, to get all my tokens and stuff like that. Of course, 2 more decks, and then I'll probably buy a few more decks, and then I have some decks, and like today I feel like playing this one. This is neat. It is groundbreaking. It's innovative. This video itself is a first impressions video because I'm not giving the game a rating yet. I want to play it some more. I want to see the whole game. I want to watch a little bit of how it works in the long run. But for right now, my initial impressions are high. I'm very excited about it. And when it comes out, it certainly is something I think people should look at.